Ooh, welcome everyone to another episode of Slasher Scotty. I am your host, Scotty McCoy, and boy, do I have a surprise for you. I have on Zoom right now with me Helene, is it pronounced Udy?
It's Helene Udy.
Udy.
Yeah,
Helene Udy. Okay.
got it. Yeah,
Awesome. And she played Sylvia in the original My Bloody Valentine film. So how are you doing?
I'm doing fine considering.
I know, definitely. I'm so glad. I know a good friend of mine, his name is Matt Burns. He reached out to you on my behalf, and I'm so glad you accepted. And just
Yeah,
so everybody knows, you'll be back a little later, from my understanding, to discuss another film that you are doing with them.
that's right.
So I'm
Exciting.
excited about that as well.
Yeah.
So the first question I got for you is, how did you get your start into acting?
Okay. How did I get my start? Well, when I was a tiny little tot in grade six, uh, I was really lucky that the theater teacher at our school wrote a play, and it was half in French and half in English. And I went to an English school, but I could speak French, and it was about this French princess who meets this handsome prince who only speaks English, but because of their love for each other, they magically are able to speak the other's language in the end.
Nice.
And so I got the part. And uh, when the male parts were split up between two fabulous young boys, um, and one of them somehow we neglected to realize that he couldn't speak French. So when it became time for him to speak French, he wasn't able to do it. So we were right in the middle of a performance, us little 11-year-old, 10-year-old kids. And suddenly he whispers in my ear, I can't do it. And so I sprang into action and I was saying his lines and then my lines and then his lines and then my lines. And suddenly this like huge roar appeared out of the audience. And it was like, wow, everybody thought it was hysterical. And I got hooked. I
Nice.
love the sound of those applause and that laughter. And I really enjoyed doing it. So that was my first acting job.
That's awesome.
It
It just sounds like, and it's been great ever since. Obviously, My Bloody Valentine. And speaking of My Bloody Valentine, what was your audition like for that?
Well, I was kind of lucky in My Bloody Valentine because I had done a movie called Pinball Summer, which is now, I think they call it Pickup Summer just so that we're not so dated. But but at the time it was Pinball Summer. Pinball was very popular.
Right.
We're going way back. And I was working on a film as I like to tell this story because I look at the amount of perseverance that
Mhm.
I had, and it paid off. And I think
Mhm.
without perseverance, you can't get lucky. So I'll
Right.
just say the story really quickly, and that is
No
that
problem.
um, I had already decided I wanted to be an actor, and I was willing to do anything to get on a set, to get some experience, to do whatever. So I volunteered myself as a an unpaid production assistant on a movie in town in Montreal. And it was so exciting. Vince Van Patten was the lead in this movie, and a beautiful woman named Claire Paris. And it was so romantic. It was a romantic story. And I was the production assistant on this movie, and I was absolutely thrilled. Every moment of the day, I would wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Great, we got to be at set at 4 a.m. I can't wait!" And I'd trudge through the snow
Right.
to get to the set and like work outdoors till the light came up. It was just
Nice.
crazy. And it just turned so happened that the locations manager on that set was the fabulous George Mahalka,
Wow.
and
Okay.
he had already been he was on his way to producing. He had been given the money and so on.
Mhm.
He was getting ready to set production for Pinball Summer. So he saw this little ragamuffin running around set with tremendous happiness and joy and exhilaration. And I also was a little overly powerful because there was one point we were in a hockey arena, and I was
Mhm.
like, at the time I was 15, I think. And, and I was given the whistle to tell people to get up and get down and clap and not clap and whatever. And I took it very seriously. I was
Right.
really pretty militant about it. But anyway, he was still impressed with me. In retrospect, I would have said, those are danger signs. She loves power. But he ignored those. And he gave me my first job on Pinball Summer. So when it came to My Bloody Valentine, which was the second movie, he just asked me to scream, because on horror movies, it's really important that you can get a good scream out.
Awesome. Yep.
I think I was a really good screamer.
and hey, that's great though. I mean, I love this movie. It's a classic, a cult classic, and it's to me, it's up there with the Halloweens and the Friday the 13th and that, because I really enjoy the low budget, indie 80s vibe it gives off, which is always my favorite. Like even the Friday the 13th and the Halloweens, I don't really go to the newest ones. I like going back to the 80s vibes. And that's how I am with My Bloody Valentine. I didn't really care for the remake or the reboot of it, because I like the 80s classics.
Yeah, there's something like wonderfully sort of, I don't know. It's they've got this just feeling. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we're jaded now, and sometimes that sort of jaded thing comes off in newer high budget productions. It's like, how many gory kills can we get? How spectacular can that be? And there's not as much attention paid to the story and creating characters that you're going to fall in love with and hate to see go and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Right, exactly. And one of the best kills, in my opinion, in the movie is actually yours. Yours is like really, really, I think it's gruesome. Like it's like one of those like clever kills, like, right in the shower, impaled the head right on that, was it a pipe or whatever it was?
I'm wondering if now that they've let out the new DVD with the never before seen cuts. I haven't seen that DVD yet, but I wonder if
either.
If they really cut the poop out of, the censors really cut down a lot of the gore in the movie, and made it pretty, you'd say, wow, is this a horror movie? Well, not compared to nowadays. Well, that's because of the censorship and not because of the way we shot it. We actually had some really interesting and wonderful special effects. We had the Berman brothers working on it, so we had the best of the best working on that stuff. So
and the thing is, like back in the 80s, the MPAA, they never gave any love to the horror movies. They literally censored all of them, unlike they do now. But in the 80s, like almost all of them just got all of the good kills censored out.
Well, it was another time,
exactly. So how was your death?
Not as prevalent then either.
So how was your death scene filmed and prepped? I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Where was it?
How was your death scene filmed and prepped? Like, what did they do to make the movie magic work?
Well, first of all, I got a whole prosthetic made of my body, which was really exciting. They flew me to Los Angeles, and the Berman brothers had just finished doing a David Bowie, The Man Who Fell to Earth. So the previous day, the man on the slab was David Bowie. So I was like, oh my God, I've done it. He was my favorite rock star at the time, still is probably my favorite. So they did a prosthetic of me that was really, really lifelike, and that really helped with accomplishing the gore. Obviously, getting that hole through my head had to be done somehow without killing me. So really, that's how they did it. And also, we were on a roller. I mean, I don't know how Peter was able to hold me up the way he did, to be honest. He held me up like this, and I don't know how he was able to do it. I mean, I'm 95, 98 pounds of dead weight. At the time I was about 95 pounds of dead weight. I'm a little more now, but that's a lot to hold up like that, even though I'm small, and then to just go like that. But he did it. And we were on a roller. I remember that part, which is why it's so eerily smooth, the way he's walking. It's just bizarre. It's really creepy. And so we did that. And the fun part for me was like letting blood spill out of my mouth and shaking my legs. I remember, shake more, shake. Shake, stop, Jake, shake, stop. There was apparently some magical rhythm that my feet needed to accomplish to make it really fun. So yeah.
Nice. And I mean, that was probably the the most effective part of your death scene, I thought, was your leg shaking, because it gave
There
the
you go. See?
effect, right? And it gave you the effect of, like, you're convulsing. You just got your head like impaled, and
Yeah.
it really, and the way you did it was superb. Like, I really give you praise for that, because I mean, first of all, it couldn't have been easy, and the fact that you did it, and you did it with such effectiveness, it really was done well. Like, that's the first thing I've even noticed about the death. I'm like, ooh, that hurt, and then, like, holy crap, the legs like shaking, like, that's awesome. Like, good touch. Was-
George is a real, he's a real visionary. Like
Mhm,
I mean, I give George so much credit. Credit for casting the cast that he cast.
mhm.
He's got a great sense of people. We all adore each
Yeah.
other, and that's no surprise, because
Mhm.
he cast us all. So he cast
Right.
adorable people, I guess, or people that could adore each other. Yeah, no,
Right.
self praise. But no, he cast a wonderful cast of people, and we were all into it. We wanted to make
Right.
it as good and as real as possible. We were just actors at the time. There wasn't such a thing as a scream queen, really.
Mhm,
There wasn't enough horror for there to
mhm.
be scream queens, or like this
Right.
explosion of interest in the horror genre
Mhm.
was not there. We were right at the beginning of it. So for us, it was just a great movie. It
Yeah.
was just a great movie, and we wanted to do a good job.
Exactly. And I mean, like you said, Scream Queens really did, or it originated around that time, but it wasn't titled. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Right,
really titled until later in the
right.
80s or the mid 80s. And
That's
like,
it.
yeah,
Jamie Lee Curtis was the first big scream queen.
yep, I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that.
In fact, she was finishing Happy Birthday to Me, and Lori, the lead in our movie,
Mhm.
was an extra on Happy Birthday to
Oh,
Me.
nice. I did
Yeah,
not know
and
that. I didn't even think of
yeah,
that. That's
Lori Helen was
awesome.
an extra on Happy Birthday to Me. She might have had a line or two, and she went straight from there to My Bloody Valentine.
That's awesome. So, how was George as a director?
George is an amazing director. First of all, he's an amazing person. He's just
Mhm.
fun to be around. He laughs a lot. He's just got a very uplifting personality, and he's over the years you can see that about George. He's a very
Right.
funny, warm bear of a guy. He was he's not that much older than me, really, but at the
Mhm.
time, I guess the age difference meant a lot. So he was kind of like
Mhm.
dad to me. Like he was,
Right.
he was a director. He was
Mhm.
somebody to respect, but uh he was so he was just amused by everything that we
Mhm.
did. And he was really good at suggesting things. Like I remember on Pinball Summer, he gave me a line reading about something, and I didn't know what the line reading was.
Mhm.
Um, but I just said it exactly like he wanted me to say it. And it turns out it's a very funny part of the movie. It doesn't really matter now. But that was the thing about George, is he just had a really wonderful
Mhm.
touch. He's a guy you want to know, and a guy you want to be around, and a guy you want to please.
Right.
And so we were all doing our best to make him happy.
Yeah. That's awesome. So was it his idea for you to do the leg shaking, or was that
Yeah,
you?
all George, all
Was all
George.
George?
Like, none of the things that you see on that screen are incidental, or, oh, look at
Right.
that. Gee, we found something. No, no, no. Oh, no. We practiced the leg,
Nice.
the leg
And
shakes and
it,
all that. No,
and it
he
shows that you
very good.
definitely practiced it, but it
Yeah.
doesn't show it to the point that it's automatically like, oh, that's rehearsed. Like, you can
No.
tell that you used your skills as an actress
Yeah.
to practice it, but make it look authentic, which is
Yes,
great.
exactly. I mean, we practiced it on screen, like we were shooting, and he was like
Right.
guiding me. He was like,
Hmm.
but
Awesome.
he knew he obviously, give him credit for knowing that was going to be very effective.
Yeah.
Just
And
seeing my legs was going to be effective.
yeah.
And fortunately for us, we had that, because initially, they cut out so much of that
Hmm.
death scene because it was brutal.
Right. And thankfully the like you said, that it was so effective that even because it was cut so much, that the leg gave it the extra credit. Because if it
That's right.
wasn't for the leg shaking and everything, I mean, the death might have not been as effective or as good as it came out.
Exactly. Yeah, you
Yep.
kind of felt it. Ah.
Yep. I know. So what was your most memorable moment while filming My Bloody Valentine?
Oh, just, I mean, of course, my death scene was extremely memorable, because
Right.
I was very method, and
you know, I really wanted to feel, I wanted it to be believable. I didn't, I wanted to experience the sheer terror of what was going on. And so I was keeping myself in a state of high anxiety. And I know that people were chuckling on the side. I was only 16 at the time, I think. So people were on the side chuckling, going, oh, there she goes. I guess she doesn't know the Laurence Olivier story or whatever, you know, like just do a little bit of acting, you know, the story about, Dustin Hoffman, like staying up all night and running and exhausting himself for the Running Man, and Laurence Olivier is just saying, you know, try a little bit of acting. It's a lot easier. But I wasn't like that. I was very, very method. So I really, really remember like doing my, you know, really, I just remember vividly the coats coming down and the feeling of fear that I had at the back of my, you know, that feeling that you're being chased. I had all of that. And so it was really good that it ended up on screen, because, you know, I've done similar things with other movies. And the fact is that experiencing something does not always translate on screen. Like I have seen myself do things and go, I could have tried a little bit of acting there, because you know, what I was feeling so hard was like, not really, you know, it was for me. Nobody else got that, you know, so yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes like you think that it's gonna come out that way, but like you said, when you watch it back, it's like maybe I could have, you know, maybe I could have looked a little more fearful, because that's why like a lot of the actors that, for example, that play Jason or Michael Myers, they like to stay away from the cast and crew, because they don't want them to know what kind of person they are behind the mask, because once they know what kind of actor they are, that they're a good person, the fear level is not going to be really there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it makes it easier for everybody. The truer the thing is, the easier the acting is. But there's also like a very strange story I had where I was, this was a movie of the week, and I was at a funeral, and I can't remember who had just died, but apparently it mattered to me a great deal. And I was supposed to be crying at the funeral, and I could not get a tear out of my eye, and everybody around me was like, you know, really sobbing. It was a terrible event, and I just couldn't get it. And finally the makeup lady comes up to me, and she like puts like the things in my eye, the little salt things in my eye, and I was so humiliated that I just, when they called rolling, I was just like, oh my God. And I just looked at the grave, and I was so still. And like these tears just started rolling down my face, not because I was sad, but because she had, you know, made my eyes tear up. And I saw it on screen, and it was like, oh, like that's brilliant. I look brilliant. I was so still. There was so little going on except for the tears rolling down my face. It was so dramatic. And I'm like, okay, well, sometimes you got to pretend.
Right, exactly. Now,
pretending is better.
Right. Now, one thing I was gonna ask, like when you brought that up, it wasn't even an original question. Does like thinking of like a tragedy in your family ever like help you cry at all when you're on screen at all, or do you like how does that work?
Well, you know what's very interesting is that acting changes. It's not like math. So as you get older, things change. When I was a kid, I couldn't identify with tragedy the way I can now.
Right.
And so I was very much in the moment of the movie. Fortunately, I'm an empath.
Right.
So I tend to believe what is happening when I'm in the movie. Like they've done studies that the brain doesn't know when it's dreaming or isn't dreaming. So if you have a lucid dream, your mind goes through the emotion just as if it was a true thing that happened. In other words, it's all true to the mind. So I could easily put myself in a state where the person that I, you know, when I was on Dr. Quinn, I always say I've never been married, but I was married on Dr. Quinn, and my husband's name was Horace, and I adored him.
Right.
My husband. And I feel like I've had two lives. I've had a life as Myra, who was married to Horace and had a beautiful child. I've had that emotional experience, you know. But as you get older, more tragedies occur. So it is easier and easier to act.
Yes, it really does.
It's like it's all just there, and it's not necessarily specifically something. For me, everybody's different, but for me, if I think of something that's not in the room at the time, it takes me right out of it. I just did a film recently with an incredible actor named Raphael. It's called, I don't know Rafe's last name or Raphael's last name, but anyway, all I can say is that we had this incredibly emotional scene and I just had to connect with what he was doing.
Right.
And what he was doing was so powerful. It can bring tears to my eyes right now, just thinking about it, because it was devastating. So I have, as I get older, I have such greater access to all of my emotions. I'm a much better actress now than I was then, put it that way.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I can't, like, we're going to talk later tonight, obviously, with the cast of Phobias, which is an upcoming indie film. And and like I said, my one friend, Matt Burns, is part of it and everything. And I definitely can't wait for this movie to come out and see how well you and obviously see your part in it. I know he said you're a major part of it, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Definitely can't wait for that. So, so speaking of indie films, what is it like being part of a low budget indie film? And are there any type of challenges that you come across?
Well, I feel like I came from low budget indie film, even though really relative to the kind of budgets that I've been working on recently, we had a lot of money on My Bloody Valentine. But the sense of excitement and the sense of importance and the sense of camaraderie that the cast and crew have on an indie film, usually when there's young filmmakers, they're not jaded. They're not unionized. You can pull the cable and you can hold the mirror and you can help to sew the dress if it's got a seam in it. So there's a much more family atmosphere, people helping each other. Maybe you'll even help in the kitchen or whatever. You know, I like to be busy on a set. It's really, really boring sitting in your trailer. Like, it's boring.
It is.
So, you know, I like indie film. I like this modern indie film. I feel very close to most of the filmmakers that I work with. I'm especially good friends with Luc Bernier and Jake Zelch and Jeff Schneider and my gosh, I've lost touch with some people, but at the time that I'm on the set, I adore these people and I'll do anything for them. I try to vet the movies really well. I've made a couple of mistakes. It's true. There's a couple things I'm not so proud of, but you have to take chances like that when you're working in indie film. People are trying to do something beautiful. They're starting out with a beautiful idea. You know, I use beautifully because even horror is beautiful. Like, you know, I think that the people I've chosen to work with are extraordinary. They have extraordinary ideas. And you just try to support them. And I love that about indie film, you know, going you know, when I was working on Dr. Quinn, that was also wonderful because I was working on it for such a long period of time that we were able to create families in there. But I'm a real people person. You'll get me if you go, oh, we're a family, you'll get me. I shouldn't even say that now because the next person that says it, I'll be like, well, yeah, you heard that interview. But I love the family atmosphere. Film is a communal experience. You cannot do it alone. It's very hard to do alone. You can't play all the parts and do all of the stuff. You depend on people to have a cohesive vision. And that makes it a really special thing. And it's always really intense. Like 9 to 5 is 9 to 5, but when you're working on a movie, you're trying to get something done. It's costing every moment costs a ton of money, and you have a very little time to get it done. And there's that elevated intensity that I'm also, let's be honest, addicted to. Being on sets are very, very special. You know, I had experienced a dearth of work at some point in time. I can't even believe that I'm admitting this because it's kind of crazy that I even considered this. But a friend of mine was doing a movie and said, well, why don't you come along and be an extra? So I was like, yeah, because I was just dying to be on a movie set. And I went, and I got to say, that was not a good experience, you know, like having had all the experience that I've had. But I got to experience what it's like being an extra.
Right.
You know, unappreciated, treated like cattle. Yeah, I got that experience. Not when I would, you know, that's I stop at extra now. I, you know, probably, but by the same token, I have good friends that are extras and they love it and they do a great job with it. So I shouldn't even say that. But for me, having come from a series regular on a network television show, it was a very hard experience, but a humbling one. So yeah.
Yeah.
Independent film sets are amazing.
I completely agree, and a lot of people know this from my past interviews. Of course, I mentioned it a lot. That I own a company called Gravestone Films, and we had our first movie. It was released this past October in 2020, and it's called Samhain, and it's like, of course, low budget. We had everything.
What is it? How do you spell that?
Samhain. It looks like Samhain, but it's pronounced Samhain.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So we had so like it was low budget. Everything that like was made of it, of course, came out of my paychecks every 2 weeks. That was where our
Right.
funds came from. Every paycheck I earned, I put into the movie. I either put
Right.
it towards my bills and my movie, and that was it, really. You know, of course, food and all that, but that was really all I did. And yeah, it was a great experience. We made a lot of mistakes. It wasn't the greatest movie out there. It really, I mean, it lacked a lot of stuff because it was our first movie we ever made. Like it was our
Right.
first one, so it's not going to be good. And I interviewed Tommy McLaughlin, who directed Jason Lives, the sixth Friday the 13th. And I told he asked me, he followed me, he's on my Facebook friends list, and he asked me how the movie's coming. He follows my posts, and I told him about it and everything. He goes, you know what I tell everybody when they ask me what my favorite movie is, and I said, what? And he goes, the next one, because there's something
Yeah.
I don't like about the one I did in the past. And he said
Right.
everyone you do next is always going to be better than the last. So
Right.
it was good advice that he gave, and I mean, it's not the greatest movie, and Matt knows that. Like Matt, you know, he supported us and got the copy, and we straight up told him about it, and he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't that good." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I can completely agree with it, and we made mistakes, and it's been announced we're redoing it with a better backstory. With now we have a budget
That's the
because
thing.
we got it."
That's the thing about any movie is
Yeah,
the story has got to be rock solid,
yep,
because when you blow it up on a screen,
yep,
any of the plot points
yep,
or anything that's just a little flimsy,
hmm
but you
exactly,
can have a really terribly shot, fantastic story and you'll get away with it. It
yep,
won't be ideal, but if
right,
there's a story there and the actors are good,
yep,
so the actors are believable,
yep,
you could set the camera on the moon
hmm
and they'll follow the story if there's a story there. But
right.
you know, I did a movie called that I wrote, directed, produced, and starred in.
Oh wow.
Oh, I feel you. I feel you. And I spent $350,000 on this movie.
Okay.
And, you know, I gave it to friends to vet for me, and nobody told me that it had plot point issues.
Yep.
And when you're writing it, you have no idea.
Yep.
Because everything's in your head. You don't know that some of it's not on the
Mhm.
page.
Yep, exactly, exactly. And after we had the premiere, and we asked everybody in attendance, like, you know, obviously not at the premiere. We asked them, you know,
Right.
later on, maybe a
Yeah.
day or so later. We just asked them, like, what didn't you like about the movie? What didn't you like about it? Because we know it's not the greatest movie out there. We know
Right.
it's our first movie. We made mistakes. What didn't you like? But
Yeah.
don't sugarcoat it. Tell us the truth. Be blunt as
Yes.
you can, because
How are
that's how
you?
you learn. That's how you learn. And they told us some things. They said we didn't understand some of the backstory, and we were kind of going to include that in the sequel of it, because that was kind of the plan, to make it into a trilogy type of thing.
Right.
And the thing is that you can't put it in the sequel and leave it out of the original, because nobody's then going to want to see the sequel. And that's one point that we made the mistake.
Oh my gosh. You know, all these things that seem so simple to
Yep.
learn, but it's like, oh, and the hardest thing, won't you agree? The hardest thing is to write the darn
Yes,
thing.
it
Hard
is.
writing is
It
hard.
is. It really is. And the best part was, though, we did perfect casting on this, and he's gonna return in the reboot of it. And he's part of our other, like, he's pretty much part of our production company when we need him. If we need him for something, we'll have him either audition, or we'll offer him a part, whatever we think he's good at. But
Right.
he auditioned for this role, and it's for the killer. It's the killer. It's basically, his name is Justin Freed, and he escapes from the mental hospital that he was locked up in, and he has multiple personality type disorder. So he ends up seeing this house, and this clown costume kind of speaks to him, and he turns into this killer clown. His name is Relic, which spells killer backwards.
I like it.
So the laugh he did, oh my God, it was so creepy. Everybody said the best part of the movie was Brett as Relic. Like he was the best part of the movie because he was a good clown. He was a comedic clown. And some of the even some of the deaths were really inventive. Like somebody said that like the one death was really good. They just wished that the actress doing it would have put a little more effort into it.
Yeah.
But it was
That's
a
the
clever
thing about dying and about whatever. You can't just try to look pretty and go, oh,
right.
No, you can't. No, you gotta, death is ugly. You gotta look surprised, you gotta look shocked, you gotta
Exactly.
look horrified, you gotta look like it's painful, your eyes have gotta roll backwards, your face is gonna make crazy, you gotta be there. Yeah, you can't just do it pretty.
And a lot of people tell me that death though was like so unique. It was basically he drowned her in a bowl of cereal.
Wow, that's pretty good.
His daughter that he's going after, her name is Sammy, Sami. So like that's the girl he's trying to go after, like to kill and everything. And of course he comes across these other people, and then a group of video game nerds come to rescue her and all that. But anyways, she like when he lifts her head up, and after he drowned her, he lifts her head up, and the cereal's alphabet cereal, and it spells Sammy on her forehead. I thought that was a clever addition.
That's very funny. You got to mix. I mean, I think we did that with My Bloody Valentine. You've got to mix some humor in there. Absolutely, that's fun.
And as long as it's done right, and the comedy doesn't overtake the horror aspect of it, like as long as you have like, because people going to see this movie think it's going to be, even if it's labeled a horror comedy, they want the horror aspect of it. They don't want it to be, a Meet the Parents or type of movie or like.
No, exactly. They want a little catharsis. They want to jump in the seats. They want to go, yeah.
Exactly, and that we had a couple jump scares, and that was good. I do love a very good jump scare, and that's one thing that. And I'm sure you agree and others agree that love horror. Like when I jump in my seat, like I'm not afraid where I'm going like this or anything. Like I'm excited because it gets the adrenaline flowing.
That's right. That's the addiction.
That's the part of the addiction. Like you said, the addiction of a horror movie is getting that scare.
Yeah. And it takes your mind right out of the present, right? A horror movie, you're all in, you don't want to miss a moment. You don't want to run to the fridge, you might miss something,
Right.
You have everything, all your goodies in front of you. You got to be ready to go. And then you just like turn the lights out and watch the movie.
Right.
You're gone for a while,
So. And I have actually, speaking of that, I have a funny story to tell you about when I was younger. I was probably a good 7-8 years old. Yes, I watched horror movies since I was like 6. I was like 7 or 8 years old at the time, and it was a Friday the 13th out, and I was watching, you guessed it, Friday the 13th. And it was a thunderstorm out, of course, of all, like on all days, we have a thunderstorm on Friday the 13th. So my parents are in the room doing whatever, like I guess they were cleaning up or something or other. It was late, it was night, it was dark out, of course, and I'm watching Friday the 13th in the living room, and here Jason's about to turn the power off at the house. And I've seen the movie like maybe 1 or 2 times, so I knew what was kind of going to happen. But he was getting ready to like get the power box, and right when he shut their power off, our power went off at the same exact time. And like you cannot plan that. Like that is a very big coincidence. And I'm like, and I ran over to my parents in the other room, and I'm like, Mommy, Daddy. They're like, what's wrong? I'm like, Jason's coming. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, Jason turned the power off. Our power went off. They're like, that's why we told you not to watch scary movies. And that was I told that story a few times to a few of my guests on the show. That's just the coincidental aspect of that, like literally at this exact second.
It is true. It's kind of like any addiction too, because like, so often, especially when you're younger, but I mean, especially when you're older and you're so susceptible, you're like, okay, I'm going to watch this. Like last night, I couldn't get to sleep. So I decided to listen to a ghost story on whatchamacallit. Anyway, I was listening to a ghost story to get me to sleep, which was crazy because it was a scary ghost story. And like, and it was based on a true story. Somebody that thought they were a vampire. Anyway, it was scary.
Could you try again?
And I don't know what she's doing. Somebody's talking. But anyway, of course I couldn't get to sleep, and I had the worst
I don't remember my dreams unless they're scary.
Mhm.
So I just, woke up in cold sweats the whole night.
Oh,
Like,
boy.
why would I do that to myself? Thinking
Right,
that, it was compelling, and I did
right.
fall asleep, and I'm not quite sure about the ending, but today I'll probably have to figure it out. But yeah, why do you listen to a ghost story when you're about to go to sleep?
Mhm.
It's crazy. But I
Exactly.
had,
I have a lot of fears, and I know I watch horror movies, and obviously, and the worst part is to watch them late at night,
yeah,
right before bed, or fall asleep
yeah,
to them. But I
yeah.
do that. Like, it's usually if I'm gonna fall asleep to
Why?
it, it
It's
has to be a
crazy.
movie I know. But why would I do this to myself?
Right?
Then I end up having a
It's like
dream,
it
and
is like an addiction. It's like you immediately regret it. I used to smoke, I'd be like, I'm not going to smoke. I'm not going to smoke, except for this one cigarette. And I'd just take a puff and I go, damn it.
right? Exactly, exactly.
I got God again,
Exactly. So, what was the best part about filming My Bloody Valentine, and what was the worst?
There was no worst. I was in
Awesome.
absolute joy the whole time. I cannot think of a worst thing, mostly because I wasn't down in the mines. My character never made it to the mines.
Right.
So I know that there was like some pretty scary stuff happening in the mines, and I wish I
Right.
could tell you what it was, but I don't know because I wasn't there. Uh, but I know that, there's a funny story about the mines. Um, they scouted this place, and the mines were perfect, and they were old, and they were closed down because they were, I
Right.
think that they were beyond, you couldn't work in them anymore, like for some
Mhm.
reason, I think because they were dangerous. But anyway, when the town found out that we were coming, they were all excited. And in honor of us, they repainted the mines and made everything just pristine and beautiful. And we arrived there and we're like, no. And so we had to spend some pre-production time actually repainting the mines back down to their grimy old ancient selves, so there was
Right.
that. But there was really it was a dream come true. I say that I was lucky in my life because of this. I feel that if when you attempt to do something that's scary
Mhm.
to do and you put yourself out and you risk a lot,
Mhm.
you risk humiliation, embarrassment, and failure, and you win.
Yep.
There's nothing more powerful than that. And the
Mhm.
first 3 auditions I ever auditioned for in my life, I got.
Right. Awesome.
So I was filled with the power of possibility. And that gave me courage throughout the next millennium of my life
Right.
to deal with the ups and downs of being an
Mhm.
actor, because I know that it's possible, and I know that I
Right.
have something valuable to offer. So anyway, it was segueing back to My Bloody Valentine. It was a great experience, and I made lifelong friends out of it. I didn't go to university because I started acting right away, and I
Mhm.
got kicked out of theater school for good reason. My theater school teacher, who I adored, my Shakespearean teacher, said, he said, you do the movie, My Bloody Valentine,
Right.
or you do theater school. You don't do both. And I said, but that's crazy. I'm studying to be an actress. Why can't I go and do the work that I'm studying to do? And he said, where you're going, you don't need theater school.
Nice.
Slam.
Nice. And it paid
Oh
off
my God,
too.
I was so hurt. Anyway, that was the painful, sad part about doing My Bloody Valentine, is I got kicked out of theater school. But the beautiful part about it is that I have lifelong friends that I adore, that are like family, that are like my soul. I mean, I adore these people, and we've been very, very lucky that that's true. We have a fantastic director to thank for that. And so we
Right.
had so much fun on that shoot, like the
Mhm.
camaraderie. And this has been said over and over again in interviews, but it's just the happy truth of it is that we had a great time.
That's awesome. And the thing is, like, a lot of people, like, going back to the acting thing, a lot of people don't realize that part of being acting is the rejections, and it hurts, it does. And like 90% of that profession, that career, is being rejected because each film can only have so many people to cast,
That's
and there's
right.
probably hundreds and thousands of people that audition for these roles, depending on how big the film is, and it hurts, but that's part of that business, and it's the sucky part, but it's part of the business.
That's right. And if you're going to be an actor, you have to really believe that you have something to offer. I don't know, have a deeper reason. I do have a deeper reason. I grew up next to an orphanage,
Mhm.
and I did connect very early on into unfairness
Right.
and inequity, and so, it's no mistake that aside from My Bloody Valentine and Pinball Summer, but most of my career has been playing delinquents and hookers and prostitutes, and not people that you would
Right.
tend to not think well of. I've
Right.
always had an empathy for characters that have been cast aside, and it's sort of been a bit of a mission, because I
Right.
grew up with some kids that were amazing, amazing children, and when they got into adulthood, the little holes in their upbringing
Mhm.
showed up, and a lot of them ended up in jail or dead, or
Sad, yeah. And it's
so
sad, but
yeah.
that's how it happens a lot of the times. Like we were like for my high school graduating class, like we don't even have class reunions because like 75% of the class is either in jail or dead.
Yeah, so
Like, yeah. So it's really it's a shame, but that I mean, especially nowadays, like, people are, wanting to, try to, do the drugs and do all that different stuff.
well,
And
and life is, it's a pretty scary,
yeah.
future. My sister's got a 19-year-old son,
Mhm.
and I would say that he holds the weight of the world on his shoulders. Like,
Mhm.
when I was a kid, like, you never thought about the end of the world.
Right.
You never, you heard about climate
Mhm.
change, but you weren't really that concerned about it.
Right. Yeah.
You didn't have to consider a future that was going to be very different from your
Exactly.
parents' future. But like the future
Yep.
that we have ahead of us, and also the disparities in wealth
Hmm.
have grown
Yep.
on, just unbelievably. Like, you know,
Exactly. And
just in Los Angeles in the past 5 years, uh, you know, 5 years ago,
hmm
you'd never see a homeless person.
right.
Maybe so rarely that I can't even think of it.
Hmm.
Now you drive by cities, homeless cities. I was in Africa, and I went to Soweto, and it's not that different.
Right.
And it lets you know that there is something really,
Hmm.
something is up.
Yeah.
Something is, the world is changing, and not in a not good way. So yeah.
Right. And the thing is, like, and plus the pandemic, it doesn't help at all.
No, the pandemic makes things worse because
Yeah.
even fewer jobs. And there's even I mean, we keep going, when are we getting back to normal?
Right.
Well, it's possible that this is the new normal to some degree,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we just don't know what other diseases are going to be coming up like this in the next
Exactly. It's
while.
sad, and like, and then on top of that, we have the obviously COVID, and then they're talking about that new strain, which this vaccine is supposed to help with. But what happens if there's another new strain, but the vaccine doesn't help against it? And then where do we go from there? You know what I mean?
That's the thing, is
It's
I think
one of
that
those,
that's what I'm looking at, is like, will we ever take our masks off now?
right?
You know,
Yeah.
uh, because it just seems to be,
Yeah.
but maybe we're in the middle of a really bad time, and it'll be rosy afterwards.
Right.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
We've certainly survived plagues, and
Mhm.
life has gotten back to normal.
Yeah.
So it's possible that it'll be
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
kids today, or younger people today,
Yeah.
it's really
And
hard
like,
to.
I don't care about myself as much in terms of if I got it because I'm young, I'm healthy, I can handle it. I care about the other people out there that have a family member that is sick, that if they that live with them, that if they get it and their family member gets it, they'd pass away. My dad is battling stage 4 brain cancer.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
For
sorry.
he's been battling it for 5 years this September. He was given a year and a half to survive. He's now going on 5 years this September, and
Wow.
he had a stroke right after brain surgery. 2 days after brain surgery. So it's like the poor guy, like nothing go right. And then actually late last week, I think it was Friday or was it Thursday or something like that. He ended up falling. I guess he was going to get ready for bed or whatever, and he fell, and my mom had to call the ambulance because they couldn't get him up. And here he partially fractured his hip and had to get a partial hip replacement. So I just spoke to him earlier today, and he's supposed to be going over to a rehab facility for inpatient. But they think that they have to like evaluate him to see how long he's going to be needed to be there. But it's like I feel so bad for him, like one thing after another. And I wrote a book about it and everything, was a bestseller. And I told my dad, like I didn't tell them this at all. My dad was sleeping. My mom was like somewhere else. When my dad was in the hospital, it was the day before the night before surgery. It was like middle of the night, like 4 a.m. And I was in his room and I was talking to him and he didn't hear me. He was out from the medicine. And my mom was, I guess, sleeping in the waiting room or something or other. And they didn't know this until I ended up writing the book. And I was kind of trying to keep them from reading the book because I didn't want them to know what I said. But what I said to my dad was, I said, Dad, you've done more for me than you've ever done in 3 lifetimes, than I could repay you in 3 lifetimes. Like I pray to God I'm praying to God like every day, like every second of this day, that to get rid of this brain cancer from you. And if he needs a vessel to put it in me, give it to me, because you're too good of a guy to even have this. And when they read that in the book, they were crying and they couldn't believe it. And I'm like, yeah, I said that. And I mean, I meant it, because my dad is a good guy and he's so young. He's in his like mid to or late 50s or whatever. And the fact that,
Not fair.
it's not fair. Like he would do anything for anybody. Like, and I know everybody says that about their loved ones, but like, I'm like dead serious. Like my dad, like if you needed something, he would give it a second thought. He would get up and do it for you. I remember when I was going to college, and like my first college I went to, because I went to 2 different colleges. I went to a community college and then a university. And when I went to my first college, I was the first time I was independent, first time I was on my own. And I mean, I was living there maybe a year or so at my apartment at the time, but my dad would always take me back, like, because he would like to spend time with me. It was like an hour drive, so he liked to spend that time with me. And he ended up taking me to Walmart, and he would buy me a lot of food and everything like that. Whatever I needed, he would let me get whatever I wanted or whatever. So I'll be like, can I have this? He's like, sure. The cart is like filled at this point, like at least $300 worth of food is in there for only me, of course. And I'm like, and he's like, no more. That's enough. We have enough in here. You're not putting anything else in the cart. I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, Dad, I really want this. And he's like, cart. Like, he would just do it for me because
Are you an only child?
I'm the only child.
Yes.
That's weird why. Yep. And like my dad, like, and another thing is, like, my dad told, like, always, he told me, and he told my cousins this as well. Like he always said, like, the speech to me was different than to them, of course, because he wasn't their father. But he said, I know you're going to be going to college. You're going to be underage. You might be drinking underage, and if you're 21 and you're still in college and you're still drinking, if you're drinking, I want you to, if you're at a party, a club, anywhere you're at a bar, I don't care where you are, I do not want you getting in that car and driving home. If you have to call me, I don't care what time it is, you call me, I will be more than happy to pick you up, because I'd rather be mad at you and pick you up than have to, bury my son. And
Yes.
I remembered exactly him telling me that, and I was
Did you
at
ever call him? Did you ever make that call?
that's just getting into that. Yep. I remembered it. It was about maybe 6 months into college, and it was like getting close. Not 6 months. 6 weeks into college, and it was getting close to, getting very close, like maybe the halfway point, a little past the halfway point. And it was a weekend, and I had all my homework done that weekend. I had all my studying done and all that. So I'm like, I'm gonna go to this club and with a couple friends. So I did. And I got drunk and I couldn't even stand. Like, I was really, really drunk. And my friends, obviously they left, and I was one of the last ones to leave. And I drove there. Like, that was the one that drove there. And I thought to myself, I had the keys in my hand. I was like on the floor, like outside in the parking lot. And I was like, I had the keys. I'm like looking at them, and I looked at my car, like, can't do it. And like, my dad's gonna kill me.
Oh,
But
good
my
that you knew that.
my dad told me. So I called my dad. I had my phone, thankfully, and I called my dad and I said, "Hey, Dad," and he said, "Yeah, what's up, Scotty? Why do you sound so like why don't you sound normal? Like, what's going on? Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm drunk. I'm at a club in a city an hour away. It's like, it was like maybe 10 minutes from my apartment, but it was an hour from him. It was like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning." And I
Wow.
called him, and I told him what happened. I'm drunk, and I remember the speech he told me, and I can't drive. He's like, "I'm proud of you for calling me. We will talk about this when I come up there." So he said, I'll be there in an hour." He said, he said, "If you can, go in your car and don't turn it on, but go in your car and stay safe. Because if you turn your car on and a cop comes up, then it's a DUI. Because even if you're not driving,
That's
at least
so.
at least in Pennsylvania, yeah."
Probably
So
everywhere. That's a good
it
thing.
might be everywhere, because obviously they don't know if you've been driving or not. So
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so I ended up going to my car, and I kept it off and just waited for my dad, and he got there and he picked me up, and he stayed the night because it was like 3 4 in the morning, so he stayed until the next morning, and
Oh,
because had to take me back to get my car. So he ended up
right. That's right.
but he ended up we ended up having a nice talk coming home, and
Oh, that's so
yep.
wonderful.
And
That's so good.
he's like, I'm mad at you, but I'm proud of you as well because you were responsible. You told me what was going on. You told me, that you didn't risk driving because, like I told you before, I would rather not bury my son. I would rather have to make this
Right.
3 a.m.
That's
call.
great. Well, you're
Yep.
lucky that you have parents like that
Yeah.
that are able, that are
Yeah.
that are really present, and
Yep.
that your dad is really present,
Right.
and
Exactly. And the
that's
fact,
true. You're very, very lucky.
thank you. And
Very
yep.
lucky to have a dad like that.
Right, and I told my dad, like my whole family, my mom, everybody. My mom's been by my dad's side ever since they've been married for over 30 years. She's been by my dad's side since he was first in the hospital. She never left his side, and she never, she always takes care of him. Like that's why I live in Maryland because I work for the Coast Guard. So I end up have my own apartment down here, and I go home. It's about a 3 hour drive every weekend just to
Where is
visit
it?
my dad.
Oh,
I live in Woodlawn, Maryland, Pennsylvania. It's in northeastern, about an hour
yeah.
north of Harrisburg. So it's about maybe I'd say
You drive in the
about
snow?
3 hours. Huh?
You drive in the snow?
Not in the snow. Like I was supposed to go home this past weekend, but it was snowing on Friday, so I didn't go home, and I was supposed to. And then of course that was the weekend my dad ended up falling.
Oh,
So it would have been nice. So now I'm not
he's
going to
in the
probably.
hospital now with a broken hip.
Yeah, he is. He's still in the hospital. He had a hip replacement surgery. It was successful.
Oh, good.
So that's good. Everything was good there. He was in a lot of pain, but today he wasn't in that much. So, but
Yeah. My mom had hip replacement
okay.
surgery. The key to hip replacement surgery is to do every single exercise they tell you
Yep.
to do it every day, do it diligently,
Mhm.
and you'll regain. My mother recovered and
Yep.
didn't need a cane for a long time until she needed a cane because she was
Right.
unstable, but not because of her hips.
Right.
And the key to hip replacement is to make sure you do those exercises because you don't
Right.
want to.
Right. And it's harder for my dad because I told you about he had the stroke after brain surgery, so it paralyzed his left side. That's why he fell.
Oh my
He
gosh.
was
So
going to
that's
the
really
left.
important,
Yep.
just getting
Yep.
movement going.
Yep. And he always
So
he's
he's
been
still
using a
paralyzed on the left side.
He's still paralyzed. Yep, for 5 years now. Yep, and he didn't have his eyesight for the first year after he had the surgery because the
He's a
tumor.
trooper. He still wants to be
Yep,
here because he
yep,
could have given up.
yep,
And
exactly. The tumor was the size of a man's fist.
oh my
They,
gosh.
they gave
Is
him
it
a month
something
to
you
live
could
if he
see?
didn't.
Could you
Huh?
see it? Did you see it or not? You couldn't see it.
We on the CAT scan they were able to tell it was a tumor there. They didn't know if it was cancer. That's when they
But
got.
you couldn't see it in his head.
Oh no, you couldn't see it in his head. No, it was in the brain. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
my
you couldn't really
gosh.
see it. But
The brain is so
yeah.
resilient.
And it
It's
was
amazing.
it was weird because it started like he started having small symptoms where he would like drive through a red light, which he would never do, and then I would be like, Dad, why'd you go through that red light? Like, no, are the cops gonna come? He's like, I don't know, but we'll find out if we see flashing lights behind us. Jokes he would never make before, like it was making him act weird. He dropped a pickle jar in Walmart, and he would like run up to me and he'd be like they're about to call a cleanup an aisle and whatever the aisle was, and like just things like that, like he wouldn't make a joke about, like
Alfie from what's Alfie's last name? I've known him for years. Alfie in My Bloody Valentine died
yes.
of a brain tumor.
Did he? I didn't know that.
Cancer. And he thought up until moments before he died, your dad is very lucky that they diagnosed it because
Yep.
moments before, for a very long time, too long, they thought it was premature Alzheimer's or premature dementia because he was behaving a little strangely. He became extremely forgetful.
Yep.
But that's what Alfie died of. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. My dad, he retired from his full-time job, and he would do landscaping work on the side with people he retired with for the state. And he was doing some work, and he was just not himself at all. And the guy he was working with called my mom and said, you get Scott to the hospital like right away. There's something going on with him. So we took him to the hospital, and first they diagnosed him with dehydration. So my uncle used to be a physician's assistant. So he ended up doing a test when we brought my dad home, and my dad failed. My uncle said, "This isn't dehydration. There's something neurologically wrong with him." So he ended up.
Oh, you're really lucky, because it could have gone on forever. I mean, with
Yep.
Alf, they thought it was dementia. Really, honestly, we all thought, and it turned out to be not. It turned out that he died of brain cancer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they said that the tumor was the size of a man's fist. They said it because it's a fast-growing tumor. It's called glioblastoma. And they said that if he ended up not coming in to find out what it was, we would have found him dead on the couch in his sleep, probably within a month. Not even.
Wow.
Yep. So he was very blessed to find out about that.
Very blessed to find out about it. And also a real trooper. He's still here. He's still fighting. You know, my mom was 92. And I think when you're 92 and you have a stroke and she lost the left side of her, she chose to go. You know, he was 92. She'd have a life. Your dad is 59. He's still got a lot of life to live.
Exactly. I'm so like happy that he still wants to fight. I told my dad, I said, if you don't want to fight anymore, I'm not going to force you to do it, because that's your choice. And I don't want you to be the one to, live just because I don't want to lose my father. And my mom doesn't want to lose her husband.
Exactly. It's so hard to let go of your parents. I know.
Right.
Oh, it's so hard.
Said that I'm not going to
I've lost all my parents now. I had 3 parents and I lost them all, and it's hard.
And my dad said, like, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up because I have a lot to fight for. I have my son and I have my wife.
Yeah.
And that's what I have to fight for. So yeah, I'm very blessed about that.
Yeah.
So the last question I got for you then is, do you have any projects, websites, or social media accounts that you'd like to promote to us?
Okay, for this I have to put my glasses on because I have so much coming up and I've forgotten people. And so today I want to make sure that I don't forget to say, oh, there he is. So what is coming out really shortly is Michael Rodriguez, The Last American Horror Show 2. It's a horror anthology. And the segment I'm in with the fabulous Donna Hamlin, sorry, I've got a barking dog there, is, it's called The Dark Lullaby. And let's see, it is coming out. So one was broadcast networks back DVD. We just got the final correction. So they're submitting to distributors at the end of the month, but we'll have a chance to see Lullaby on its own in the coming weeks on After Hours Cinema.
Okay.
Dark Lullaby on After Hours Cinema, which will stream to Facebook Live on a television network with a horror host. He's just waiting to get a date. So, okay. So anyway, look out for that. That's not a whole lot of instruction. There's phobias. I just start shooting a film called Blood Covered Chocolate. Okay. I'm starting to shoot that in March. And that is directed by Monty Light. And of course I play my favorite character. I play a hooker. But it's a really dark, really cerebral horror film. It's very mental. It's really like, oh, I don't know what to compare it to because it's so original. But it's a horror movie of the mind is all that I can say, you know?
Right.
So there's that. Jake Zelch, one of my favorites, is still shooting Savage Vengeance. I'm going to be shooting that at some point soon. But again, that's an indie film. Jake Zelch has done Mia Moss. He's done The Krampus Carol. I was in all of his previous movies. And so this is the new one. So I'm shooting that. Jeff Snyder, Evil Under the Skin is out on all the platforms. I think you can find it on Amazon and on Netflix.
Yeah.
So that just came out recently, Evil Under the Skin. And there's another one coming out soon. And of course, I don't remember the name of it. Let's see, what am I forgetting? So The Haunting of Lady Jane I'm shooting that in October in England. And we're gathering the funds. Right. So I'll be posting on my Facebook about the funding of it. but that's a beautiful, spooky, gothic ghost story.
Nice.
And I love that. It's got a really beautiful feel to it. I just finished shooting Reflections of a Broken Mirror with the filmmaker Marco Bazzi. And that is, it's horror in the sense that it's definitely going to give you those thrills. But I would say it's a really intense psychological drama thriller.
Awesome.
It's a spectacular movie, really scary. And oh gosh, oh geez, oh I would have to look at my IMDb. I'm sorry if I missed anybody. Let's see. Wait a minute. Let me make sure that I've got everything coming up. What am I shooting coming up? I know that I'm missing somebody. I just can't think of who it is at the moment, because I have a lot of stuff coming up shooting, and I'm blanking. So Monty Light, Haunting of Lady Jane, Phobias. Oh, Phobias. Oh, okay. Phobias.
Okay, yes.
Phobias is coming up, but we're going to be talking about that later on today.
Yep.
So that's why I'm worried about that one. I know there's more. What is really helpful for people, for me, it really helps me out if people go to my IMDb page, imdb.com. Oh, there is another movie. Gosh.
It's a lot of them.
They haven't posted it on IMDb yet, and I have a hard time remembering the names of the movies and stuff. It's in post. Oh my gosh. Wait a minute. Do you mind if I just look?
Nope. No, not a problem, Matt.
Because I really want to promote all the people that I should be promoting.
Absolutely.
But if you go to my IMDb page, and my name is spelled Helene, and the last name is U as in under, D as in David, Y as in yo-yo, and take a peek at all of the things you can follow there, what's going on. There's a lot of fun things happening. And it helps. Bad Voices by filmmaker Lawrence Gibbs. They're just finishing up the post on it, and we're going to be posting it on IMDb soon, so that you can track it yourself.
Right.
But that is a really fun sort of low budget version of Men in Black. That's what I would compare it to. And I played Dastardly Scientist, and I love that. That's really, really fun. So I'm getting typecast, Dastardly Scientist. A lot of those. Nice. Yes. Okay, good. All right. Those,
You're going to be one of those
scientists.
So go to IMDb,
absolutely. Go to imdb.com, find my name. There's a whole list of wonderful things happening there. I've probably forgotten a few people. I apologize, but they're listed there. David Dakota and I work all the time. I don't know if do you know who David Dakota is?
I don't.
Oh,
I don't think I do.
You should know who David Dakota is. Look him up, because he's going to go down in history as one of the most prolific indie film entrepreneurs of all time. Like he's the second coming of Roger Corman.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I do a lot of work with him. He has a series called The Wrong, and then fill in the dots, like the wrong cheerleaders, the wrong cheerleader's friend, the wrong fiance, the wrong boyfriend, the wrong, step.
Right.
Awesome. And I've been in a lot of those, if you look at IMDb, and they're all really entertaining. Nice. They're really entertaining. Even though they're formulaic, it's kind of like you still, what's going to happen, but you still want to get to the end of it. Like, how is it going to happen? Right. So I work a lot with him, and I adore him, and he's given me a lot of chances. In fact, I think David Dakota single-handedly revived my career when it was sort of sleeping a little. And, since then things have gone really a lot better, but yeah, I work with him a lot. So
that's awesome. And speaking of him being the second coming of Roger Corman's big shoes to fill. And if you're giving him that title, he must be really good.
And I don't give him that title lightly.
Right.
He deserves it. He's a master. When I started working with David Dakota,
awesome. I'm definitely going to look into
working with him, which was maybe about 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. He could produce a whole movie in 2 days because he was so clear on where to put the camera, and he was so good at making sure the script was tight, that all of the elements of a movie were there in 2 days. And he had some little tricks, like he always used the same locations.
Right.
So he knew the lighting at noon in this room, and then we'd go run to that room because the lighting at 4 p.m. in that room. And, you know, he had a system, and it was just like, what? How does he do this? And then you look at the movie, you look at all the ions. They're not shot in 2 days, but they're still shot in a very short period of time. They look spectacular.
That's
like,
awesome.
they look really spectacular. So he's definitely somebody that will,
Awesome.
I do believe, will go down in history. People will realize what a.
I don't know why I had never heard of him before,
Look him
but,
up. You should
I'm definitely going to look him up.
Yeah, and I mean, once you know him, you'll be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've probably seen that.
I probably did.
Puppet Master was his first.
Oh, okay. I seen Puppet Master.
Yeah. Oh, are you looking him up on IMDb now?
No, I've seen Puppet Master. When you mentioned it, I'm like, oh, I've seen that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I wonder if he, I might be lying now, but he might have even started off with Roger Corman. I'm not sure.
Okay. So Puppet Master, just so I'm thinking of the right one, that's the one like with the one puppet that has like the drill in his hand and like, you know what I mean? That one.
I don't know because I didn't see it.
Oh, okay.
That's the one he's. But look at the name, and then everything else will.
Awesome.
will come. I have to talk up David Dakota because I admire him so deeply, and
that's awesome.
You know, and also I have to say about David Dakota, he's an amazing. You know, he's made his name doing genre films, but the fact is that he's an amazing director. He again is somebody that I would totally trust with a line reading. I did a movie with him called oh gosh, A Husband for Christmas.
Nice.
And it was a comedy and a family movie, which he also does, like MOW type of stuff. And he gave me maybe 3 or 4 line readings, like do it like this. And like, so funny. He made me look so good. So he's a master too.
And that's the thing, like when a lot of people don't understand that you could say the one line this way, and the same exact line that way, and that way will have much more impact, whether it's funny, if it's comedy, or like fear if it's in a like a horror. Like that one line, the tone of your voice, the way you say it, it can totally change the mood.
Totally, absolutely, your intention, everything. And you know, it's really interesting. I think like dialogue is like music, and it's impactful that way. If you know about the rhythms of dialogue, which some people do, it'll affect you like music does. So if you're with a particularly talented director, they know what's going on, you know?
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. It's my honor, and I'm so great.
And you know, lots of prayers for your dad.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. And I will see you again tonight when I have the Castophobias on.
I'm changing my wardrobe, by the way. So
I'll be changing my shirt.
You are or you aren't?
I am.
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, I'm not changing.
You don't have to change. No, that's perfect. You look beautiful. So I'm glad to have you on. Thank you so much. All right. Take care. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you in a little bit.
See you soon.
Okay, all right. Bye.